for the players, though, I don't really care that much about Twitch, but for
Mm,
players, people who would have to buy this game, unless it's like a free game now, which I
mm,
assume not,
uh,
but like people who have put all those hours into Overwatch 1
mm-hmm.
aren't really gonna be impressed by having to buy a full game release of Overwatch 2 if it's pretty much the same game with a couple tweaks.
First up on the show, we have a weekly Muse, and today I thought that, that little Overwatch thing I said at the beginning was foreshadowing. Because,
Foreshadowing for shame.
yeah, because I don't know if you're familiar, Alex, but Blizzard makes a few games.
Like
And
3.
they make 3 game series that they do a lot of iteration. 5. I want to say actually more like 5.
It's like 4.
It's Diablo, Warcraft, Starcraft. There's something else. And then
Hearthstone.
is Hearthstone though part of like the Warcrafty kind of?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
And then they make Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overwatch 2 is in the news right now because they've started to do drops and it's been streamed on Twitch. And it's not really, I don't believe it's in full, like it's fully out, so to speak. It launched in beta.
Yeah, of course. They're
And
gonna have betas so they can get people interested and so they can get feedback.
yeah. And there's
But,
been some opportunities for like different creators on Twitch to give like drops of the game for people to get into the beta as well.
Sure, because of the things Blizzard's actually decent at, it is having an open beta before.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, you can get into the beta of whichever game that we're making.
Yeah.
That way you can test it out and we can get feedback.
Yeah, and you would hope that they would try to cast a fairly wide net, especially for a multiplayer game, because there's no, like, single-player experience to be had with Overwatch. So if you don't have players in it, it's going to be kind of a problem. Um, but at any rate, so the original Overwatch came out a few years back, and it became, like, a big hit with, like, the esports tournament scene, and everyone was playing it for a while. And so, of course, they thought to themselves, well, we're going to have to make an Overwatch 2 because money. And and so, yeah, recently they came out with it. It was originally announced at BlizzCon 2019, but now finally, a few years later, we're finally starting to see it get played. And it came out to a really uproarious account on Twitch on April 27th, I want to say is the date, where they reached a record result of viewership 1.46 million viewers watching the game simultaneously on Twitch.
Sure.
It's that's in case anyone's wondering, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of people watching a stream on Twitch.
That's true. Now,
was that their official stream for it, or was that a creator?
That would have been, my understanding is that's the all of the creators combined that would have been streaming it. There was at one point streaming continuously. There were 1.46 million combined people, because I'm sure a lot of the big streamers were playing it at the same time when the betas dropped. So, but that's not really the story. The story kind of comes on April 28th, day 2, where the viewership drops off by like 99%. And I wish that was a hyperbolic statement. But if you actually look at their peak concurrent viewerships, I mean, it's this giant bar, and then it's this. It's like down, way, way, way down here. And so a lot of people started wondering, okay, well, why? Why did viewership drop off so significantly? And
they didn't pay for their bots.
They didn't pay for their bots. That's what they should have remembered to do. Now, I gotta be honest with you. When I first saw footage of Overwatch 2, I thought, why are they just showing me the first Overwatch game? Like, I did not know that this was like the new game. And there were a lot of people that made mention. I was actually watching when Dunkey did like his first impressions, and he was like, if I put these two games side by side, you could not tell which one is which. It looks completely the same. A lot of the same arenas. The characters are all basically the same. They've changed McCready's name. So there's that. Some of the abilities have been nerfed. And I think that it's like, instead of a 6-on-6, it's like a 5-on-5 now.
But you wouldn't need to make a new game for that. That just sounds like you'd be having a major update to your current game.
Which is the reason why a lot of people are colloquially saying that Overwatch 2 is Overwatch 1.5.
Right. In that case, people aren't going to pay for that.
And also, people are probably not going to watch it because they've been seeing this game already for the last 3 or 4 years. Which is understandable. I think that that's really the biggest place where the viewership dropped off. If I were to, they talk a lot about it being similar, about not a lot of changes and stuff. And yeah, I have a feeling that once people watched it on day one, saw that it was pretty much the same game that they've seen this entire time, realized that there wasn't much point in just watching the same thing retread again.
Yeah, smaller matches, whatever. I think for the players, though, I don't really care that much about Twitch, but for players, people who would have to buy this game, unless it's like a free game now, which I assume not, but like people who have put all those hours into Overwatch 1 aren't really gonna be impressed by having to buy a full game release of Overwatch 2 if it's pretty much the same game with a couple tweaks.
Right. And, I can understand that because I don't really like paying for the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, you do sometimes.
Come to think of it, actually, yeah, there's at least like 3 games that I bought on multiple occasions, on multiple platforms.
Now, think of this on the other side of whatnot. Now, League of Legends, I know it's technically a different game. Like different type of game even.
Allegedly. Yeah.
League of Legends is a free game.
Yeah.
They make all their money through cosmetics, whatever. But if they were to go, hey, we're going to do League of Legends 2, nothing from your first game is going to carry over. And it's basically going to look like League of Legends 1 with a bit of tweaks.
Yeah. That's not going to go over well.
And then, I mean, it would be okay-ish. Because it'd be, if it was, same cost as the original, free.
Yeah.
But if they were like, yeah, and we're going to give this a $25 price tag, people would go, we're just going to stick with the free one.
Yeah. Until they decide that they're going to turn off the servers on that one. so that you have to use it. I would say that they are above that, but no, I don't think they are. It's like saying, like, there's been some rumblings about potentially having, like, a Fortnite 2, and I'm like, okay, people are definitely going to want to have all of their cosmetics that they've unlocked.
Yeah, no, for games like that, you don't do a version 2. You don't do a 2. You do an expansion that adds more to the base game. You do exactly the model that World of Warcraft has been doing for the last 2 decades, which is your base game is the base game, which now is just free. You just pay for your subscription, essentially. But you have your base game, and then you have expansions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Things like that, or the battle pass model, which, I don't really care for, but it's just an expansion pass. It's whatever.
Sure. And
you don't do a whole new game, though.
Yeah, and you would imagine, I mean, that's Blizzard. Did they not figure that out?
Different teams, I assume.
I guess so, but especially because
different marketing teams.
Yeah, definitely different marketing teams. The other big problem that they were having right out of the gate was the role queue. So there's kind of like a random match queue that you could get into, and I guess you can get into that relatively quick. But if you want to take on a specific role, you want to be a tank or a DPS or something like that, or a sniper healer or something like that, those queues are like never ending.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're like you will spend more time in the queue than in the actual match.
Well, it's the same thing again with World of Warcraft, where you can dungeon queue now. You've been able to do that for a while, but you sign up for the dungeon as a specific role, because the game wants to know for matchmaking purposes you can't have a party of all rogues, for instance.
Sure.
Like that doesn't work for a dungeon very well.
Be cool though.
Sure, it'd be cool. You can do it on your own anyways, but like it needs you to have a party composition with a tank, a healer, and then 3 DPS. 'Cause it's a party of 5 for the dungeons.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this case, in the role queue, it's the same thing. And if you've ever played World of Warcraft and used the dungeon, looking for dungeon finder or dungeon finder, whatever they call it, like, it's been a while, dungeon finder, you will know that if you are DPS, you're going to have insanely long queues. Yeah. But if you're a healer or a tank, your queues are almost instant.
Right.
It comes with the wanting that pseudo responsibility, I'll call it. It's not really a responsibility, it's game. If you are willing to be a tank or willing to be a healer, you're going to get faster queues because not as many people want to fill those roles very often.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mind healing on my shaman, for instance, when I played WoW.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just queue up as a healer and I'd get instant pops and I'd just easy mode healing. So you just go into dungeons and I'd just be like, cool, I'm doing the bare minimum here.
Yeah. So in the case of Overwatch, just looking at one of the articles on this, and teams are locked into compositions. In this one, it's 2 DPS, 2 tanks, and 2 support. Is what you're locked
That's
in.
Such a weird composition.
Yeah, it is. Which is why I'm thinking it might have actually been that there was 1 tank before, and then they decided that you get 2 tanks. These role queues are implemented separately. There's separate wait lists for them. So it sounds kind of similar to actually what they did with World of Warcraft, but the game won't start until all of them are filled, and so the DPSs, go figure, like you were mentioning, are often backed up because of how many people want to play the characters that are doing that. And so you can do open queues, but, then you don't know what you're necessarily playing or the role that you're going to be picking. And so it shortens like your wait time in the Video Game Donkey video. It shortened wait time from like 8 minutes to 5 minutes. So you like reduce by 3 minutes if you just say, I want to do an open role play. But then I don't get to be like the cool FPS player necessarily.
See, what you do instead is you just have a randomizer that goes, all right, whatever you want, there cannot be more than 1 tank and there cannot be more than 1 healer, and it's this many people, so it'll just randomize the groups. You do something like that.
Yeah.
That way you don't have a group that's all tanks or a group that's all heals.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also so that for randomizing distribution of players to groups for matchmaking purposes, in that case it'd be like, cool, there's not, like, if there's a surplus of DPS, which there is going to be, there is not a surplus of healers and tanks in specific groups, and there's just a distributed randomized outcome, then where it's a max of one of each or two of each, whatever, for those groups.
Oh,
Now, I would say the other way they could do this, I don't know how many characters are in Overwatch, so I don't really know. Doesn't matter. But what you do is you increase the number of DPS per game. But then you'd have to make the matchmaking size bigger. So maybe you would go matchmaking of 4 DPS, 2 support, 2 tanks.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
I can see
I don't know how that would throw off the balance. I've never played Overwatch. I don't really
know.
care the type of game.
Right, yeah. I played some of the first one, but I did run into the problem with that and Paladins and a bunch of others that I was trying out, that it's just not my style of game. I don't really do the team-on-team combat, like, scenario. But I was thinking that they could try to do something more like ranked choice voting, but for, like, the Overwatch, where you say, okay, what roles do you want to fill, or what characters do you want to play? This is my first preference, second preference, third preference. And then they basically okay, there's no way for you to get in on first preference, so we'll try with your second one and see if we can get you into a game quicker on second preference, etc. So they could do that. Or, and this would be something that would be neat as a game idea anyway for a lot of these arena match style things, is to do something similar to what they did with Dungeons and Dragons, and you can have a character class, and then they can specialize in different ways. So
I don't know that Overwatch does that. Again, I've never played. I have no idea what character progression is like.
Yeah, it's the kind of game where your different kinds of characters are supposed to specialize in like the way they actually play. Like they're all supposed to play differently from one
I
another.
assume it's more similar to League of Legends.
Probably. Not that I've played League of Legends, but
I've played a bit. It's been a while.
yeah.
I don't advise it.
Fair enough. Yeah. Like, it's not like a Fortnite where everybody basically has the same loadout and you figure it out as you go, or it's more of like, I know it's not exactly a hugely popular game, but it's more like a Paladins, where you have a bunch of different kinds of specific characters, and they function differently from one to another, which means that their roles are kind of set in what they're supposed to do. But upshot is that it did not go over very well, which is not great news for Blizzard, and they're in the middle of a few other problems in the meantime. But it is still technically currently in development. It doesn't have a release date. It's probably going to be 2023 before it comes out. It's an official release. So I guess some time to figure out if they can make this not Overwatch 1.5?
Yeah, we'll check back in later on them and see how they're doing, maybe.
Maybe. Wouldn't it be amazing if we ended up just doing like an Overwatch 2 tournament for Total Bubble Knockdown?
That would require buying the game, and I'm all set.
You know, you're absolutely right. Maybe we'll get some of those keys that keep dropping.
No thanks.
No, I'd have to watch way too much Twitch in order for that to work. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.